welcome everybody. I am excited to be here doing this interview of a new but a good friend of mine. We've known each other for a little over a year. We got together in Park City. He came out from the east to see what mountains were all about, and he
Yes.
really learned to like them a lot. And his name is Ryan Dunphy. He's a fellow coach and a teacher and a learner and just an amazing guy. And I was just telling him he has a great voice, so you'll want to pay attention and listen to his voice. But he's an expert. We both work with stress, and we have different ideas about stress and different ways to beat that. But I wanted to have him come and share his message with our group. And he's got some great things, and he is definitely an expert on this. So welcome, Ryan.
Wonderful. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that wonderful introduction, and I'm excited to share with your community. Utah is amazing. I live out in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, so I'm about 2 hours from New York, 2 hours from Philly, and only a couple hundred feet above the ocean. So it was a bit of an adjustment coming out to visit you out there.
Yeah, it was. I watched him climb mountains, and he went a lot farther than I thought he would in that altitude of almost 3,000 feet. He did really good. Well, take a minute or two and just tell us who you are, what you do, and what you think you can share with our group.
Sure, I appreciate that. So I was born and raised in New Jersey, and I was very active growing up. We were more into camping and fishing and hiking. My father didn't really have a team, so we didn't spend too much time in front of the TV. By default, I guess I'm a Yankees fan, and where I went to college, I was kind of a Phillies and Eagles fan. But I enjoy pretty much anything, as long as I can spend some time with friends. So I'm more interested in the experience end of it. So growing up, I was very active. I played kind of every sport. And then when it came time to pick a college and pick a major, my mother was working at a physician practice, a family doctor, and health promotion was really becoming a big thing at that point. So the prevention end of healthcare. So she recommended I had gone into that. I looked into it. I said, these programs are cool. This can put me in a fitness center or helping people or, something medically based. So that was the initial springboard, was a health and exercise science degree in South Jersey at Rowan, formerly Glassboro State. And then I worked in corporate fitness for a year and realized pretty quickly that I wanted to do more, have more of an impact with people. So I got a job with a medical center, running 2 medically based wellness centers. So fitness centers open to the community, but we also housed physical therapy, cardiac rehab, the Center for Advanced Weight Loss, which is the gastric bypass. And I got to work with some incredible people. And over those years, I really saw a theme of a lot of these injuries or illnesses were on the preventable side, where it all boils back to how we respond to stress. And I really thought a lot about it. I did some research, and there was one day where it's kind of like a movie montage. I climbed a mountain out here, which is a hill to you, Greg, and I sat at the top of this I call it a mountain, and I thought about all the people that I worked with and all the people I interacted with, and who some of my favorite clients were, and where are those themes? And it all boils back to how we deal with stress. And at the end of the day, too much stress costs us our health, our happiness, our time, and our money. So we need to take control of that, better manage that on the prevention side. So that way we're not dealing with a knee replacement or a gastric bypass procedure or a cardiac event that could cut our lives 20 years shorter than it should be or could be. And basic things like drinking enough water, the number one contributor to our current life expectancy, which is incredible, is clean drinking water. And a lot of times many people try to overcomplicate the solution because they may have a very complex problem or think that they have a very complex problem. But a lot of times it really requires a simple solution. For those listening to just audio, I'm pointing to my head right now. This is a very basic operating program with very old constructs. And we need to be eating enough real food, not too much, not too little. We need to be moving our bodies. They're designed to be moved. And we need to sleep. And oftentimes in today's society, a lot of that comes up short. We're eating the wrong things. We're eating too much. We're going too long without eating. We're not drinking enough water. We're just eating sugar and soda and alcohol and junk, and we're depriving ourselves of sleep. And some of the three worst words and most dangerous words right now are one more episode. And Greg and I talked about this before this call, but the treasure trove of content that you have out there, there's no end to it. But we have to take control and say, all right, it's reaching a point now where I need to go to bed so I can get my quality and quantity that I need, which is different for every person. There's some basic guidelines, but only the individual person knows what's enough for them. So there's my quick 30,000 foot view of how I arrived at helping people better manage stress, better manage time. And I'll give one little quick nugget of when it comes to time management. It always starts great discussions, but one of the first things I lead with is there is no such thing as time management. I've never met anybody that has 25 hours in the day. I've never met anybody with 20. We can only manage ourselves, and it's how we use that time. And when we shuffle the equation that we try to come up with, or the formula for our lives, time is the only constant. Everything else is a variable. And when we go off of that formula, it makes everything easier for prioritization, simplification, delegation, because time is the one thing that is just that constant. It's just ticking forward. I know that I have 16 hours every day that I'm awake. And I know that I'm asleep for 8 hours. So it's, how do I best use those 16 hours? So there's my, as fast as I could, 30,000 foot intro.
No, it was amazing. And I think with your expertise through your work that you've done, you understand all the different parts of the body. Plus, you understand the importance of what goes in the body and all that. So you have a well-rounded look at stress and what it affects. I can back up. My dad didn't teach me a lot in my life, but he used to drink tons of water.
Okay.
And until he died, he really wasn't ever sick. And so I drink tons of water. And when I say tons, probably a gallon a day or a little bit more. Other than being overweight, I've been pretty healthy. I'm a pretty healthy guy. And it's just water. You love the water out in Utah. You're like, the water out here is so good. I said, this Rocky Mountain water.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you had to, what's your 30-second answer to defining stress? What is stress?
So it's anything internal or external that comes into our life or we bring into our life. And these are situations or emotions or feelings, and we respond in a certain way, either unconsciously or consciously, reactively or proactively. So I try to get everybody aware of what they're doing at first. How are we using time? What are we eating? Are we moving enough? And then what can we do to get ahead of that stress? Because stresses are always going to be coming into our lives. Things are going to come up. Everything is constantly changing. But if I have my lunch packed mostly the night before, so I can just throw it in my lunchbox if I'm going out for the day, I've now set up the day for success, because I know at some point I'm going to get hungry. I need to eat. And if you take somebody that has prepped their lunchbox the night before and they're ready to go all day long, and I used to work in construction, so sometimes it has to be out in the sun for 10, 11 hours, and I've dealt with food poisoning twice. So I use really big ice packs versus somebody that doesn't bring anything. Maybe they go to work and they eat a donut and a cup of coffee, and then they wonder an hour later why they're still hungry. And then at lunchtime, they drive out to Burger King and spend $10 on, I'm using air quotes, food, drive back to work, wolf down that stuff, feel terrible, and then take another 20 minutes in the bathroom in the afternoon. And then at the end of the day, they haven't really had any nutrients, so they overeat at night, and then they're in the bathroom again, and then they can't fall asleep quite correctly, or they say, well, I can't sleep, I'm gonna go downstairs and have a drink, or I'm gonna go have something else. And it's all those small tweaks of either we are gonna respond to a stress, or we're gonna be ready for it and prevent it. So I think I went over 30 seconds, but did that answer your question?
That's a great answer. And it just points that all areas of our life make stress. Right. And we can get stressed from different places. What's some of the tools that you use to help people lessen their stress, and make it better to get through the day. And like I said, have a positive day. Set themselves up for a positive day instead of a stressful day.
Sure. So being proactive and simplifying our life is really key, especially now. So as we are recording this, we're in the spring of 2020, and things are incredibly stressful right now. We're dealing with the coronavirus. We are hopefully in the thick of it now, and things are going to be getting better soon. But we really have to focus on simplifying our lives, because we have never had the level of complexity that we currently have and the level of choices that we currently have. And sometimes more is not always better. Maybe the answer is a little bit less. So anybody that I work with on a one-to-one basis or in a group setting, I'll recommend a movie. It's actually a documentary called Minimalism. And at the time that this is being recorded, it is streaming on Netflix for free. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. And, it's a documentary. There's some odd parts to it, but a lot of it is wonderful. And it talks about, what is actually important in life, and why do we keep chasing stuff? And it's all because of marketing. And we get into this comparison trap. And these are wonderful devices, smartphones, if we use them correctly, if we use them on purpose. So main thing I help people with is to take control of their lives. And one thing that's really helpful for me is with a cell phone is just to simplify that. Turn off all of the alerts except for text messages and phone calls. You should not get a beep and have a hamster reaction every time you get an email or a Facebook like or an Instagram follow. We have all these different things. Again, old system, basic operating system. We're going to respond. We're going to get distracted. So a lot of people try to multitask, but they confuse that with a term they might not even be aware of as multifocusing. You can multitask. I can walk down the street with my dog and chew gum and talk on the phone at the same time, but I can't multifocus on 6 different things at once. A lot of times we try to lump those into the same category. So I'll have everybody reduce their phone down with the amount of notifications, because when you think about how many times you go on there every day, that's really important. And as well as the home screen, I have everybody take their app, you can hold it and reorganize them. Push all your apps over one screen. So when you open your phone, it is just a picture that makes you happy, like your 4-year-old son watching monster trucks and the 4 most commonly used apps on the bottom. A few months ago, I tried an experiment on myself and turned off notifications on text messages, which by definition is non-urgent because it's a text message, not a phone call. And it was one of the most freeing things that I'd ever done. It was amazing. I had more control over my life, and I went on my phone on purpose when I needed to. And if somebody needed to get a hold of me instead of wanted to get a hold of me, they would call me. And it was really a neat exercise, because these smartphones are a very new thing to a very old operating system. And in the history of humanity, these are brand new, and we have to learn how to use them responsibly.
Wow, that's amazing stuff. An amazing thing with the phones, because they do bring a lot of stress.
Right.
I get to the point. Just by the end of the day, sometimes I'm ready to throw it out the window. I'm like,
Right. Right. So two other quick things when it comes to the phone, because it is such a big part of our lives now. For some people, it's like an extension of their arm. It's important to be aware of the comparison trap when you're on social media. So this is something that I learned about a few years ago when we were expecting our son. We were doing some childbirth classes at a local hospital system, and the woman who was hosting this was incredible, and she talked with everybody about this comparison trap. And I had heard of it before. I'd used it in different applications, but this was a specific instance for Instagram. And she recommended to all of the expecting moms to at least be aware of this, if not turn off Instagram for a little bit, because that is purely a visual comparison platform. And you're seeing everybody else's highlight reel, and you're seeing everything through a filter. And that filter is filtered and through another filter. So you're seeing very little real life happening on there, but it's easy for your brain to see, well, everybody else's life is better than mine. Everybody has a nicer car than me. Everybody has bigger arms or a better butt on Instagram versus what you see in the mirror. And it's important to be aware of that. So that comparison trap when it comes to using social media, and there's plenty of great reasons, great things that happen on social media. We're having this conversation because of the Speakers, Authors, and Coaches Network, an amazing group on Facebook that brought us together and brought us into the same room in Utah. And I'm very thankful for that. But there's also a dark side to a lot of this. A lot of people don't talk about of constantly scrolling. What are you actually looking for on there? How much time are you spending just mindlessly scrolling through the social media platforms? The last thing I'll do with the phones, and I'll get off of my soapbox when it comes to cell phones, is one of my colleagues recommended a full day off on a quarterly basis where there was no phone, there was no work, there was no contemplating things about work. It was just a total day off. And I did it in early March, and it was incredible. My wife was incredible. And if you're watching this, thank you, Lori. She was very supportive of this. She took our young son the whole day. And I got up early. I drove out to New Jersey. I went hiking with friends. We went to visit a wolf preserve. We got to learn all about wolves and bobcats, and went out to lunch. And I came home and I organized my toolbox and washed my Jeep. And it was the most refreshing day I've had in a very long time. I didn't check any social media. I didn't get any text messages. I had no phone calls. And it was so helpful. It was like a full recharge. Like, when you shut your computer all the way down and then it works great when you turn it back on, it was essentially that. And even thinking about that day, I can draw energy from that. When I think about how simple that is, but I had to put it on the calendar and protect that time, that it was very much like a Saturday in the 90s before we had all this extra stuff, which wasn't that long ago. And I think that's a lot of the reason these retreats are so popular now, is people need to be forced to unplug and relax for a few days. And it's so vital, so vital. Put the phone down even for 12 hours, 24 hours. Everybody knew I'm off. I'm off today. I'm totally off. And believe me, it was tempting. I deleted all the social media apps off my phone, and I even found, like, by reflex, why am I tapping this right now, where that icon was? Because we're all, to a certain extent, addicted to this stuff. And I'm okay saying that because a lot of us are. And so if you can, get some time for yourself, on a daily basis, 15 minutes every day, 1% for number one, like we talked about before this call. Take care of yourself so you can better serve everyone else. And then if you can, every quarter, a full day off, especially if you're someone that helps other people. They should have the best version of you, not all the leftovers and all the burned out version of Brian, or the burned out version of Greg, or the burned out version of whoever is listening to this.
Wow. Great advice, and good time spent on the soapbox. And a lot of people are like, I could never do that. Oh my gosh, what fantasy world are you in? And da, da, da. And it's called simplifying your life.
Right.
It's called me time, especially for a whole day. Our Jake Ballantyne, the one who runs our mastermind group, just took this last weekend and didn't do any social media.
Right.
And he posted none. That's it. You can't get a hold of me. All right. Not going to happen. And he said it was unbelievable and refreshing. And it used to happen even before cell phones. I remember eating lunch with a guy, and that's back in the day when you had a pager.
Sure.
You had a pager stuck to you, and your work would call you all the time. And he went up to go to the bathroom. I said, leave your pager here. Oh, I could never do that. I said, your job's so important that you can't even go pee without your pager. I said, really? You can't take 2 minutes and get away from your pager? Oh, no, right. I could never do that. And same with cell phones. Right. Same with cell phones. If you were to talk to parents with little kids, you have your son, little kids, what would you tell them? The number one thing that they can do immediately right now to reduce stress in their house?
Getting enough sleep and having a consistent schedule. Right now, as we're filming this, we're dealing with all the coronavirus. So it's very tempting to stay up a little bit later because maybe you don't have that morning commute, or your kids don't have school. So it seems like whatever happens, happens. But maintaining a consistent schedule with some healthy time boundaries is really vital. And having a kid stay up, a couple hours later than their normal bedtime, they're essentially going to have how we feel jet lag and changing time zones. And for anybody listening to this, how does your kid act when they're tired? How does your kid act when they're hungry? How does your kid act when they haven't moved enough? Now also flip that for yourself. How are you when you haven't rested enough? How are you when you're hungry? How is your decision-making process? How is your interaction with your kids? How is your verbalization when you haven't moved enough? And there's simple, I mean, you can walk up and down your stairs. Hold the kids, walk up and down the stairs. They're going to laugh. You're going to laugh. Everybody's going to benefit from that. And so simple little silly things that we're all needing to be reminded of and implement now more than ever. This has been a really interesting wake-up call on a lot of different levels.
No, that's great. I know with dealing with stress with a lot of the people that I coach, and maybe you run into this, perfectionism.
Yes.
Got to be the perfect dad, got to be the perfect employee, got to be the perfect PTA person, got to be the perfect this.
Right.
What advice do you give to people that are living in a world, to talk about a fantasy world,
Sure.
where they wake up in the morning and I got to fix everybody and I got to fix everybody's problems?
I view 80%
What do
as
you tell?
perfect. Lower the bar a little bit so that way it is actually attainable. If you are eating just about all of your meals healthy, you have a little bit of room for flexibility. If you're getting great night's sleep most nights of the week, that's good. If you get to work on time pretty much all the time, but there's that little wiggle room for imperfection and randomness, for all the fellow Jurassic Park fans out there, you have your chaos theory of nothing is ever rigid and exactly the same every time. But embracing 80% is perfect. And because life is imperfect, that's what makes it interesting and fun. Because if we were just having Groundhog Day where everything is exactly the same every day, it's going to get boring pretty quickly. And if life was perfect, it might be fun to test drive that for a few hours or even a couple days, but it's not going to be very interesting. So we have to let go of being perfect and be okay. Maybe the focus needs to be, I'm going to be excellent instead of I'm going to be perfect, or I'm going to be great instead of I'm going to be perfect, or this is going to get done versus this is going to get done every single time. And being open to, maybe how that stream flows a little bit with the path of least resistance. Each day is a little bit different. It's kind of like a river. You can kayak on a river, and then 2 months later you can kayak on that same river, but if the water level is a little different or the temperature is a little different, every experience is going to be a little different. So trying to force anything to be perfect is a dangerous game to play, and you're just setting yourself up for disaster. So it's important to let go of a little bit of that, especially if you have little kids. We say to everybody, you can come in and visit us anytime, but this is a house. We live here. This is not a magazine.
Well, I think people have seen during this interview with you, one of the things that I love about you is you're upbeat and you're positive, even when things aren't going perfect, and you understand
Thank you.
they can't be going perfect. And I see that when you talk about your wife, especially when you talk about your little boy, your eyes light up.
Yeah.
And that's your life. But I know you practice these things that you've been talking to us from.
Right.
And you spend a lot of time outside.
Yes. Yeah.
Pictures and videos you put. Where can people find out a little bit more about you and what you're up to, and make contact with you? Because I'd love to have my people. This is a smart guy. You need to contact him.
Wonderful. Yeah, I appreciate that, Greg. So Facebook is my main channel. I spend most of my time there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Ryan Dunphy. So if anybody has seen Modern Family, yes, you now know a Dunphy. I don't do real estate, at least not yet. But that's what everybody always references with that. So Facebook, you can search for me there. I have a page for stress reduction tips, time management. For any parents that are listening to this, I have a group called Adventurous Parents. And at the time this is being recorded, we have about 600 parents in there from all over the country. And anybody is welcome to come in. And, I run a lot of the stress reduction, time management topics through the lens of parenting. which will make it definitely unique and different than just a blanket statement for everyone. And there's a lot of collaboration going on in there right now and a lot of community because everybody is recalibrating and learning how to do some homeschooling as well as working from home. So there's a lot of great discussions in there as well. There's ideas of fun stuff to do with kids. My wife has posted some different scavenger hunts, and it's been a really great way to keep the kids entertained and everybody sane and moving through this process.
Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being with us, and people share this and tell people, this is a wise guy and he's from Bethlehem, so he knows
Definitely, definitely.
that's what he's talking about. It's Pennsylvania, but we'll
Right.
leave that part out.
Right. And then the last gift I want to just share with everybody, one thing that I focus on with a lot of people when it comes to simplification is creating a smarter to-do list. So I came up with this exercise where we brain dump everything out, and I have this framed out in a worksheet. Anybody that wants it, just shoot me your email. I'll make sure to get it over to you. Get everything out of your head, and then we split it urgent or non-urgent. So we're putting that line down the middle. And then we're taking those two lists and splitting them into wants or needs. And when you run it through those two filters, you can figure out what's most important. And then there's an area at the end where I bring, these are the 5 most important urgent need things I need to do now. Here's 3 more things that are maybe in the want category, and then an area to write, how is it going to feel when I finish this? Because it's really important to focus on that as well. So if anybody wants that framework, I'd be happy to email it to you, and I'll get it in through that group.
Absolutely. That's something that people could start lessening their stress today
Right.
by using that.
Right.
Again, Ryan, thanks for your time and all the wonderful information.
Wonderful, Greg. Thank you for having me on, and to everybody, embrace every day as a new adventure.
There you go. Take care.
Bye-bye.